بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, community members, and Ramadan Kareem. I hope that this episode sees you and meets you in a full high spiritual and iman, inshallah, and a good prep for Ramadan, inshallah. I would say that this episode is very important for each and every one of us. To know exactly what shall we expect from the governments at the state level. Last episode we spoke about some stuff related to the unemployment, and today we're going to talk about a lot. We're going to talk a lot about how much shall we expect from what's called stimulus package, and who is eligible and who's not, and if I've like a family of 5, what shall I expect? And like if my visa is H-1B, if I'm like on asylum, or like did not get my green card yet, what shall I expect? All those questions and more will be answered by our guest speaker today. And our guest is a dear friend, and at the same time, it's a member from our community, Ms. Kelly Hoffman. Ms. Kelly Hoffman is a litigation and employment lawyer at Marshall Hall, with a Juris Doctor degree from Harvard Law School. Ms. Hoffman provides strategic advices to clients on all aspects of employment law, including creating workplace policies and employment-related contracts, counseling clients on employee disputes and performance management, conducts internal investigations, and responding to discrimination charges and litigation. She has been collaborating, as I mentioned, with the Islamic Society of Boston for more than 2 years right now. Please join me, welcome Kelly Hoffman. Kelly, how are you?
Good, how are you, Amr? Nice to see you.
Thank you very much for giving us the time to be with us today on this Q&A from the ISBCC. We have lots of stuff to ask you about, so I will start by give me what is this stimulus package? And
yeah,
what's under this stimulus package?
So when we talk about the stimulus package, at this point, there's actually been 3 different stimulus packages. There's a 4th one that they're thinking of hopefully passing later this week. What goes into the stimulus package? The one you hear most commonly is the CARES Act, which is the 3rd one, the most recent one that's passed. And within that stimulus package, there's a number of different pieces that can help both individuals and small businesses. So there's we've been hearing a lot about the stimulus checks. That's direct checks to taxpayers who meet the income thresholds. There's a supplement to unemployment for people who need to go on unemployment. There's an additional $600 that people will get every week. They've expanded unemployment to include people who wouldn't have qualified otherwise, to include small business owners, to include people who were working on a 1099 independent contractor gig economy basis. And then there's these givable loans and grants to small businesses. So if you're hearing Ppp Loans, the EIDL loans, those are all that. When we talk about the stimulus package, we're talking about all of those pieces.
Awesome. So we will tackle them one by one, so then we know exactly from the perspective of community members who's eligible, who's not. And to give you a perspective, some of our community members, they are still on visas, and some are refugees, and some are on asylum, and some are American citizens. So it's not it's a mixed and diverse community members. So I will take them one by one. So now I understand the stimulus package has all the benefits packages. Fine. Let's tackle them one by one. I've heard something about checks, stimulus packages, or something to touch our bank accounts. Who's eligible? What is that? What is the amount?
So the stimulus checks are direct payments from the IRS sent to individuals. If you had direct deposit, they'll deposit it directly. Otherwise, it's going to be a check that comes in the mail. So who's eligible? People with social security numbers. So if you are an American citizen with a social security number, you're good to go. If you are on a different kind of work visa, you're probably not eligible. And as I was just before we started, I was telling Amr, it came out this morning that the LA Times is reporting that we have a situation where a married couple filing jointly, one person has a social security number and one does not, that they might not get the check. within those parameters, there's also an income threshold. So for individuals, if you're making less than $75,000, you get the full amount, and the full amount for an individual is $1,200 plus $500 per dependent child. So for a couple, that would be $2,400 plus $500 for each child. For individuals, the income.
For which age, Kelly? Like when you say like dependent child, like 500, like is it age related?
If you qualify as a dependent. So, we're seeing some situations where like college students are not getting their own check. Their parents are getting the $500 as a dependent. So if you qualify as a dependent,
even if the college student is like having his own social security and like filing tax separately?
It doesn't matter. If someone can claim you as a dependent, then you fall under the dependent category, under the same rules, under typical IRS rules as to whether you qualify.
So 1,200 plus 500 per kid.
So it's 500 per child or dependent, and 1,200 per individual. And then the phase out, again, the phase out is for individuals is between 75,000 and 99,000, and that's your adjusted gross income. So, when you do your taxes, it might not be what you actually made, because there's all sorts of things that get taken out of your adjusted gross income. And then for couples, it's the phase out begins at 150,000 and goes till 200,000. So in that phase out zone, you'll get a little bit, but it's just kind of a sliding scale. Another thing to keep in mind is that it is based on what if you've already filed your taxes for your 2019 income. So if you already filed your taxes for 2020, you filed them in February, you were being responsible, they're going to go off of your 2019 earnings. If you haven't done that, since they extended the deadline to July to file, so a lot of people haven't filed yet, then they're going to go off of your 2018 income. If you had direct deposit on file, they will direct deposit the check. If you didn't, then they're going to send you a physical check. My understanding is the direct deposits are already going out. A lot of people have already received them. The physical checks are much slower. I'm not sure if they're even coming. I think they're supposed to start coming out this week. It's going to be a rolling basis. So if you were on direct deposit, you qualified, your income was right there, check your bank account, you might already have it. If you weren't, then you might still be waiting. You might be waiting for quite a while, because I think it's going to be a fairly slow process.
Awesome, Kelly. And this is like, just to make it clear, this is a stimulus package. This is not a loan.
It's not a loan. No, this is not. You don't have to pay it. It's a pure grant. And it's a one-time payment. I mean, one thing people are wondering is, okay, well, that $1,200 that helps, but this is, are we going to get it in May? Are we going to get it in June? So far, no. What has passed so far on the federal level is a one-time payment. There's talk of doing it for May, for June, because obviously this crisis is going to keep going for quite a while now. But for now, it's just a one-time. That piece of the CARES Act is just a one-time stimulus payment. But like we'll talk about for the rest of our time here, there's a lot of other good programs in the CARES Act that can help people too, in addition to this.
Awesome. So now I'm done with this piece. Just to make clear, it's $1,200 plus $500 per dependent, and this is up to now. It's one-time payment for people like who applied for or submitted their tax return for 2019. Check your bank accounts. You might have received it already. If not, it might be a check that comes to your mail. This is up to now. And for whoever did not submit their taxes, most likely they have to wait, and they submit the taxes so that it goes to their accounts, or they will take 2018 as a basis for that.
Yeah, just to clarify, if you haven't done your taxes yet, you should. That does not matter. I mean, they'll just use your 2018 numbers. So even if you haven't done your taxes yet, they're going to process it. So you don't have to do your taxes in order to get the stimulus. It should already be rolling based on your 2018 number.
Okay, thank you very much. And who qualifies? Anyone who's Social Security, regardless of their visa immigrant status, right? Regardless of that.
Yeah, well, I think I believe you have to be a U.S. citizen with a Social Security number. I'm not 100% sure though.
Okay, perfect. Now, what are those additional 600 benefits? I know that's the 500 per dependent. Is there anything else that say $600 additional benefits?
So the $600 number that's coming from unemployment. So so should we move on to the unemployment benefits?
Is it like this? Okay, fine. Leave it for now. Leave it for that. Now, so now we know the individuals and households, and this is for everyone across the board. This is like 100. Okay. What about the people like who are having businesses and they lost, or they have to shut down, or they laid off their people?
Okay.
We knew about the PPP and another loan, EIDL. So are they loans or forgivable grants, or like what they fall under that?
So the PPP loans and the EIDL loans, these are the two main programs for helping small businesses. And what they are, the PPP loans are the ones that are getting the most press. They're the more generous program. What it is you can get a forgivable loan. So in some ways you should think of it as a grant for up to 2.5 times your monthly payroll based on what your payroll was last year. So your payroll of 2019, whatever your payroll was in 2019, 2.5 months of that is your maximum loan amount. And then what you can do is you can take that and you can use that money for 8 weeks to cover your rent, your utilities, and your payroll. A lot of people right now are having a situation where they have laid off some of their workers, half of their workers. One of my clients is a cafe, and they had to, they're working 10% staff right now, basically just enough to have their takeout. But they still have rent, they still have utilities, so they can use their PPP loan to cover their skeletal staff and rent and utilities. And in order to get the full forgiveness, they just need to rehire everyone, or at least it doesn't have to be person to person, but they have to rehire an equivalent number of people by June 30th of this year. So, and then that piece, whatever you used for those 8 weeks, is completely forgiven. It's converted to a grant. You never have to repay it. The other nice thing about these loans, though, is that even if you, for example, let's say you just don't, your payroll is so small that you're not going to use the full amount of that loan on utilities, payroll, and rent for 8 weeks, you can still use that loan for those types of purposes, for payroll, for rent, for utilities, to keep the lights on. And it becomes a loan, but the interest rate is really low. The interest rate is only 1%. So that's a pretty good deal if you need it as a loan. That's a better deal than you're going to get in just getting a small business loan. So it's a fairly generous program. Most people are excited about it for the loan forgiveness component because you can get a grant to pay your rent, to pay your utilities, to pay your workers for 2 months, right? For 8 weeks. The problem with the PPP loans, you've probably seen in the news, is that money ran out. So a lot of people, there was a big scramble. People applied for these loans. You have to apply through your bank. So you apply to your commercial bank, whoever's your normal lender. And then there was just a big scramble to get this money. The money ran out. So it's been pretty unpredictable who got it, who didn't. It tends to be people who were working with small local banks. They had a relationship. Bank of America, for example, the first day the loan application opened, they said, we're not taking them if you don't have an existing loan with us. So then all of those people lost their place in line, and there's a big scramble. So the money ran out, basically. So a few things. If you have already received your PPP loan, then you can proceed with using it under those conditions. If you haven't received one yet, if you applied and you haven't received one, I would talk to your bank and see, do you hold your place in line if they renew the funding? Because Congress is supposed to renew the funding. There's talk that they're going to pass it today, maybe tomorrow, another $300 billion going into this program. So I would talk to your bank right now and see, do I hold my place in line? Is there anything about my application that I need to fix now to make sure that when this new funding comes in, that I'm eligible for it? Because the last thing you want is to, have some small glitch in your application. New money comes in, you would have gotten it, but you had some typo. So make sure your application is good to go so that if the new money comes in, you have your best chance to be funded. So that's the PPP program. I'm cautiously optimistic that the new funding will help a lot of people, but it's been a bit of a scramble. I mean, I think people might have seen, for example, Shake Shack got one of the loans, and they got a $10 million loan, for a very large business, they don't need it in the same way that your local cafe, your hairdresser, your small retail shops, the small businesses that are truly at risk of going under need it. So I'm hoping optimistically that the additional money will really help.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, because like I know that this grant, or like this PPP program, have been primarily introduced to help the small business keep the lights on. And when I hear like something like Chick Shack, like they took this huge money, or they don't need it. By the way, they brought it back.
They did.
Yeah, and actually, like they are after that, so they would like to know who are the giant people who access these funds. They have to bring it back. What is the process for that? I don't know. However, this is a huge burden operationally as well. However, we are hopeful that this money will reach those small and medium businesses where it's primarily was targeted to. They need to keep those like doors open. Thank you very much. And what is this EIDL law?
So EIDL, it's the Economic Injury Disaster Loans. It's a similar program to PPP. The benefit to EIDL loans, initially, again, these things changed because they ran out of money, but when it first started, what you were going to get is if you applied for an EIDL loan, which is essentially just a loan, again, to cover your operating expenses, it had a higher interest rate than PPP. The interest rate is 3.75 for businesses. But it came with a $10,000 upfront grant. So that, again, a complete grant, you don't have to pay it back. All you had to do was apply and you're supposed to get a $10,000 grant. Again, it ran out of money really fast. And so the Small Business Administration came out within days and said, oh, it was going to be $10,000. Now it's going to be $1,000 per employee, capped at $10,000. So if you have small business with 5 employees, you were going to get $5,000. And then just like the PPP, it ran out of money. So again, this is supposedly in the new legislation that's going to come out this week, is to refill EIDL. It's a nice option for people who maybe you didn't have that much of a payroll last year. So you didn't, you need more money. You can get more money under EIDL, and you can get the $10,000 forgiveness, which is not too shabby. You can use that for your rent. You can use the terms for, you can use the $10,000 on anything, unlike PPP, where it has strings attached to what you can use it for, including existing debts. For example, one of my clients there, a dentist office, one of their biggest expenses is their existing debt, their existing obligations for all of their overhead. So that's a pretty good package for someone like that, where they just something to cover those existing obligations, maybe more than they need payroll, rent, and utilities.
And but this is not, it's not available now, Kelly, that's right?
What's that?
It's not, there's no money for that right now as we speak.
Today, but I'm hoping that there'll be more money for that this week. So that's another thing for people to think about.
Awesome. And the kind of business that qualify, any kind of business qualify for that?
Yeah, and profit and nonprofit. So that's one thing that nonprofits can get as well. So that's
even nonprofits can get the EIDL.
Nonprofits can get EIDL, and their interest rate is lower. I think their interest rate is 2.75. And nonprofits can also get PPP. So that's something also to think about if you have a nonprofit.
Just before jumping into the unemployment thing, I have a couple of questions. Muaz, assalamu alaikum. He said that, what if my dependent is born in 2020? Is he eligible to this $500 that you mentioned?
So again, because they're going to go off of your 2018 or your 2019 adjusted gross income, your tax returns, they will probably not automatically give you that money. However, I have seen the IRS has opened up something where you can essentially report a dependent and get that money. So I would look into that. I would go onto the IRS website and see if you can find that where you can report a dependent, and then hopefully they'll process that for you.
Okay, awesome. So I'm shifting gears now, Kelly, and I want to touch base on the unemployment benefits under the stimulus package. So can you give us like a hint? What are the benefits that's currently available under this stimulus package for unemployment? You know that there's too many people that get laid off, even the number of hours being cut. So what are the benefits?
So unemployment, honestly, is a really good program right now for everything that's going on. When we're talking about the PPP and EIDL running out of money, the one program that has not run out of money is unemployment. And so So there's a few different ways that unemployment has been expanded. One, business owners can now go on unemployment. They couldn't go on unemployment 3 months ago. This is a new thing where you can go on unemployment. Also, 1099s can go on unemployment. Gig economy workers can go on unemployment. So that's all fantastic. And if you go onto the Department of Unemployment Assistance website, there's a whole new program you apply through. It's called Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. That is for business owners, 1099s. If you were a W-2 worker, just regular employee, you just get your paycheck from your employer, then unemployment same as well. Plus, what your normal benefits on unemployment. Let's say you made $1,000 a week. Your benefits would be 50% of that, so you get $500 a week. What the CARES Act has done is they're kicking in for everyone across the board, regardless of how much money you made, an extra $100 a week to your benefit. For that person, $1,000 a week. Your normal benefit's $500, extra $600 kicked in, you get $1,100 a week. So again, you're actually making more money on unemployment than you would have been making in your wages. As people are like, well, how can that be? This is intentional. The idea is we want people to stay home. We don't want people scrambling to go out and get a new job to replace their old job, because what we really want is for people to stay home, like stay home, stay home, stay home. So that $600, it goes to your W-2 worker, it goes to business owners. So if you have a business and you were, paying it doesn't matter how much you were paying yourself. If you were paying yourself, $2,000 a week, you get your benefit, which it's capped at $823 a week. So if you make $2,000 a week normally, you would be capped at $823 a week plus the $600. And that goes until July 31st. So it is a nice bridge to help people get through this point in time. And then you also mentioned, what about people who have had their hours reduced? If your hours are reduced, you can go on unemployment. There are different ways that works. It depends on how much your hours reduced, because at one point it's kind of a sliding scale where if your hours are reduced 10%, well then your 90% of wages is going to gobble up your unemployment benefit. But you can make a little bit. So if your hours have been drastically cut, you can make a little bit, and then you get the extra $600. The other thing, especially this is something that business owners should think about. But if you're an employee and you can bring this up to your company and say, look, can we do this instead of cutting everyone's hours by 50%? There's this thing called work share that you can get. And what work share does is your business sets up, you say, we are going to cut everyone's hours across the board by a certain amount. Maybe we're going to cut everyone's hours by 50%. Everyone's going to work 50%. Unemployment will so then you pay your people for the 50%. You pay them their normal wages for their 50%. And then unemployment will pick up the rest. Again, it's going to be the benefit, right? So it won't be 100%, but it'll be 50% for that reduction. And then you get the $600 on top of that. So depending on the math, if you need to reduce everyone's hours by 50%, put them on do a work share program, get everyone on unemployment, and then they get the extra $600 a week. People are going to hopefully do all right under a program like that. If you're an individual and your company is just saying, like, look, we're just furloughing you and you're only we're just reducing your hours, I would talk to them about doing something like work share, because it doesn't cost the company anything. It's an unemployment program. They're not injured in any way by going on to this. It's something that will help the workers get that, to make up the difference, to bridge that gap between their normal wages. So that's really good program too. And again, you get the extra $600 through 30 years.
That's very, very deep and very enlightening. Thank you very much, Kelly. I have a question from Mr. Ibrahim Muhammad. Said that, how can I close my case with DOA so I can qualify for POA? I try to contact them with every way. I cannot get hold of them. What's going on?
Yes. So this is a big problem, because the PUA portal was not open until this Monday. So a lot of people did what Ibrahim did, which is, okay, I'm going to apply with my DUA and then try to, is that how I get it? And it's it's kind of created this logjam, right? Where DUA, you have to wait until DUA rejects your initial application in order to apply for PUA. I would do a couple of things. They have a system on their website where you can submit a request for them to call you. It's taking a long time. They're really overwhelmed. At the same time, they do call back. Eventually, they are processing these. They are trying to get it worked through. The other good thing to know is that no matter what happens, it will be backdated to when you first had to go on unemployment. So if your business closed on March 13th, even if you don't get through the process until May 1st, you will get your benefits backdated. So you'll get all the money back to March 31st. That's not fantastic. You need to pay your rent on May 1, but it's good to know you're not going to lose any money. You're just going to have to wait for the money. So, so for someone like Ibrahim, I would submit the request through the DUA website. I would keep calling, I mean, it's just like anything else. They're just overwhelmed. And so the more you can do to get through, and then eventually they will clear it. Eventually they will reject your ordinary application and open you up so that you can apply through PUA.
Kelly, thank you very much. Another question, Kelly, like some of our community members are business owners, mainly restaurants business owners. Mm-hmm. So, and they used to take the money, not like a salary based. At the end of the year, they take it as K1s. Mm-hmm. They make some money. So are those like restaurant owners eligible to this unemployment?
Yep, absolutely. And they just do a look back to they look back for the past year. So even if you weren't paying yourself on a regular basis, that doesn't matter. It's a 50-week look back. So they'll look back and see how much you made over the last year, and use that to calculate your benefits.
Okay, perfect. There's a question from Abu Bakr Siddiq say that can people in work visa with H-1B apply for the unemployment benefits?
Yep. As long as you had a valid work permit and you were working, then yes, you should be fine.
Awesome. Great. Thank you very much, Kelly. I think that's like you give us like very good rounded views for that. I have a question for you. Are you still like if someone would like to reach out to you to help them in this, like a business owner or something like that, is this something that your office provide as well?
Yeah, so we primarily work with business owners. If anybody has questions, business owners, feel free to send me an email through my normal work account. I mean, as you can tell, we're working from home, but we're still here and answering emails. If someone is an individual and they have questions, if it's a simple question, I'm happy to answer it. If it's something more complicated, I have a good network. I can send you somewhere someone can help you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Kelly. And I'm asking the ISBCC team here, Kareem, Ibrahim, please, for our community members who cannot even apply online by themselves, do some workstations at the ISBCC, and let's establish some context communication with Kelly and see how can we bridge that so that we can make it easier during those moments on our community who do not have access or elderly cannot have access. However, there are some benefits waiting for them at the unemployment side or even like on the stimulus package. Thank you very much, Kelly. It's been an honor and pleasure seeing you, and hope that like things will develop and we'll be seeing you to tell us like, hey, this is gonna like last longer, or like, hey, there's another package that's there, and let's see how things will progress. Thank you very much, Kelly. Really, thank you.